I hope that you are well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on research writing. And before we start with our lesson, we're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 7. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of research writing. So we're doing research writing. So our chapter is research writing. Our subject is English language arts, grade 7. And the lessons that we're going to be focusing on is to identify plagiarism, right? And then recognize the parts of the works cited entry. All right. So plagiarism is the act of taking another person's work or idea and presenting them as your own. So it's either you accidentally do it or on purpose. So plagiarism, it is the act of taking another person's work or ideas and then presenting them as your own. And we see it can either be accidentally or it is basically just on purpose. And when you're outside and when you use outside sources in your writing, then you need to replace, then you must be careful to avoid plagiarism. So any outside sources that you're using within your writing, then you're going to have to be careful when it comes to plagiarism. You're going to have to try and avoid plagiarism. And during the course of the lesson, we will also find out how you can avoid plagiarism. And if we look at the specific source, right? Here we have a source. This can either be from an, this is specifically by, it's in a, this is one of the journals, right? So look at the source. This is specifically from a journal. And here they specifically say who wrote the journal, which is the authors of the journal or the writers of the journal, the name of the journal, the publisher, as well as the date of publication. So that is how you can maybe, let's say, write a source. That is now when you are either researching something, right? You cannot take words and work and make it as if it's your own. So you cannot take, let's say, information from the Americans Feel Better Informed Thanks to the Internet journal and then you write it as your own or you write it as is. All right. So once again, plagiarism is the act of taking another person's work or ideas and presenting them as your own work or your own ideas. So you can either accidentally take somebody's ideas and work, or you can do it on purpose. So when you use other sources or outside sources, then you're going to have to really be careful when it comes to plagiarism. And the vast, if we look at, we have a source, right? We said that we have the source, which is by Kristen Purcell as well as Lee Rainey. And this is basically a part of or a piece of the text that was taken from the journal. It says the vast majority of Americans believe their use of the web helps them learn new things, stay better informed on topics that matter to them, and increase their capacity to share ideas and creations with others. Right? So that is basically, let's say, a piece of what is written within the journal article. The article that says Americans feel better informed thanks to the internet. All right, so we said that plagiarism is the act of taking someone else's work and making it as your own, whether it's the work or ideas, right? And now a quote. A quote. A quote is when you copy a source or you copy a source's exact words, right? Exactly directly how the writer said it. So you copy that. And if you quote a source, you need to put those words that were copied into quotation marks. Into quotation marks. And cite the original source. You're going to have to go back to the original diary, book, um, if you get it from the internet, you're going to have to go back to the original source and then you're going to have to cite it. Internet users appreciate how the internet increases their capacity to share ideas. And if we go back to the article on the internet or Americans using the specific internet or the benefits of the internet, right? You're then going to have to, let's say, read or skim a scan and then write it over as if you're writing it in your own words. All right. And we said internet users, they appreciate how the internet increases their capacity to share ideas. And that is basically what Purcell as well as Rainey said. And even if you, let's say, if we directly take something from either a book or journal entry, right? We need to, if you directly take something, you need to put it in quotation marks because you are quoting it. For example, internet users appreciate how the internet, and now this is directly taken, increases their capacity to share ideas. And that is by Purcell and Rainey. And then Purcell and Rainey, they state that the internet users appreciate how the internet increases their capacity to share ideas. All right. And there is quotation marks, right? A quote needs to be in quotation marks and try to always, whether it's an outside source, anything from the internet, if you are directly quoting, it needs to be in like quotation marks. If not, then it needs to be written as your own. And then we have paraphrasing. And a paraphrase is when, oopsie, it is when you use an idea from a source and you put it basically into your own words. And that is what I mentioned earlier on. If you take an article or from a book or somewhere, right, instead of just quoting it, you can basically just rewrite it into your own words. So, paraphrase is when you use an idea from a source and you put it into your own words. And if you paraphrase a specific text, then you do not need, right? You do not need to put it into quotation marks. So we said a paraphrase is when you use an idea from a source and you put it into your own words. And remember, when you paraphrase a specific source, you really don't need to put in quotation marks. Quotation marks is when you directly, let's say, take something from either the internet, journal article, and you use it as your own directly. So, as much as you're not going to use quotation marks because you're not going to directly take certain words or ideas, right, directly, let's say from article or book, you are still going to have to cite the original source that it came from. All right, so if we look at this one, it says, according to Purcell and Rainey, right, which they are authors of journal entries, internet users appreciate the opportunities for both learning and sharing that the internet offers. Right? So paraphrasing is when you use an idea or source directly and you're putting it on your, like you're putting it into your own words. You do not need quotation marks, but you're still gonna have to definitely still cite the original source. And if we look at the last one, it says internet users appreciate the opportunity for both learnings and sharing that the internet offer. So we can say that internet users appreciate the opportunities for both learning and sharing that the internet offers. All right. And when it comes to, let's say, citing certain words, or then there are different rules about how to formulate or format citations, such as when to include page numbers, when to use parentheses, right? And then you need to basically just check a style guideline, for example, such as either modern language, and associate MLA handbook for a couple list of new teams. All right. All right. So we said when it comes to plagiarism, we need to first identify plagiarism, right? And remember, plagiarism is either where you're taking somebody's ideas, thoughts, or basically physical information and making it as your own, right? And then we said a quote is when you copy a source's exact words and you must put the words that were copied into the quotation marks and cite the original source, right? And remember, when it comes to not being caught, let's say, plagiarizing, all right. Now let's go on to, actually, we are doing a tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. All right. So basically, when it comes to research writing, then there's a few things that we need to avoid, and one of it being plagiarism. Now we're going to aplusstudents.ca. All right, so we said we are going to identify plagiarism. All right. So we can then say we need to compare the student's text with the specific source. So we're going to compare the student's text with the specific source. All right. And once again, we said plagiarism is the act of taking another person's work or ideas and then you basically just stand here and present it as your own. All right. So we say that we need to look at two sources, which is to find the core of what makes your work unique. You have to be willing to put in the work. Right? And then we also said a quote, right, is where you copy a source's exact words. All right. And once again, we said plagiarism is the act of taking another book's work or idea and presenting it as your own. A quote. A quote is when you copy a source's exact words. And then once again, we have quotation marks. And a quote is when you copy a source's exact words. And if you quote a source, you must put in the words that were not copied into the direct in the quotation marks and the original source. All right. So quote is when you're copying exact words. You're just gonna have to put in the words that were copied into the quotation marks and cite the original, right? Once the quote is at source. And then you have the word called paraphrasing. And a paraphrase is when you use an idea from another, let's say from a source, and you put it in your own words. If you paraphrase a source, you do not need to use quotation marks. All right, so paraphrasing is when you use an idea from a source, with a book, journal, internet, anywhere, and you put it into your own words, right? And if you paraphrase a source, you're going to have to need to use quotation marks, but you will need to cite the original source in the data. All right. So now let's go to the test. So we're going to compare students with the text. So we compare the students with the who takes the most. So we're going to compare these two texts, right? One that is paraphrased and one that is not. So source, which is Miss Michelle Z, Donna U, and the name is How Much Does It Really Cost to Make a Penny? And penny have an estimate 25-year lifespan, but because so many of them fall through the proverbial cracks, demands from year to year varies. All right. And yet is the student text, right? So that was a text from Michelle Z. And this is now student text. As Donnie writes, every year the demand for pennies varies because so many of them fall through the provincial cracks. All right. So now we are doing a test, right? So we're going to say if these texts are either plagiarism or plagiarized or not. So if we look at these two texts, do you think that it was plagiarized? As in, no, it is not plagiarized, or yes, it is because it fails to use quotation marks. So we need to compare the student's text with its sources. Right? So if we look at this specific video, we say it's plagiarized or not plagiarized. All right. And it is plagiarized. So we need to compare the student's text from their source. John Hendricks, which is a Drawing is Magic, page 10, published by Stewart, Dubori, and Chang. So to find out the core or what makes your work unique, you have to be willing to make bad choices with drawing. And when it comes to, let's say, either plagiarizing, then you're going to have to develop your own style of art and drawing and doing things. You're going to have to be willing to make a bad drawing before you get to a perfect one. So now they want to know if this is plagiarized or not. All right. Let's go with yes, it is plagiarized. And yes, it is plagiarized. Well done. Right? All right. And remember, when it comes to plagiarism, comes to quotes, comes to taking work that is not ours, right? It means that you can either, when you, let's say, go to a higher grade or you go to college, university, you'll be able to mark down, right? Because you are taking the ideas and you're taking words that belongs to a different author or a writer, and you are basically making it into your, like, as your own. So if we compare the text with the sources, meaning the text as well as the teacher's text or student's text. So it says pulpit's rock stunning natural setting and spine tingling awesomeness makes it one of Norway's most famous and natural attractions. And the student's text is Norway's pulpit rock is popular because of its stunning natural setting and spine tingling awesomeness. Let's see, but this is not. Ah, so that is actually plagiarized. plagiarized. Here we have another one where we need to compare the student sticks with the sources, right? And remember, we do the comparison so that we can just see that you do also know how and when to, let's say, add a specific source. Because whether you get something from the internet, the magazine, whether you get something from a book, you can have to, let's say, quote from where you got the specific article, right? And we're going to say, yes, it is plagiarized, right? It is plagiarized because they do not basically put the words as their own. Or if they do, there is no sources that it goes, let's say, there's no sources that it links with. All right. And the last one is if you look at it says until 1974, nobody knew that right below the people of northern China, an enormous underground army had been standing guard silently and watchfully for more than 2,200 years. And a student now, no one knew that an army of terracotta soldiers had been buried underground in the northern China for over 2,200 years until 1974. And is this plagiarized? Yes, it is, because it fails to cite the source. Do we see the source? Nope, we do not see the source. And it is plagiarized because you need to show your source, whether you get it from a book, a magazine, right? You need to show your source. All right, so when it comes to research writing, we have plagiarism, right? Which is the act of taking someone's work or ideas and basically using it as your own. Then we have a quote, right? Quote is where you directly take something from, or let's say directly take work from what somebody specifically said, either in a story, in a book, or in an article, right? And then you put it in quotation marks, right? And you need to be careful when it comes to plagiarizing. Because when it comes to plagiarizing, right, you can either be marked down, right, or eventually, let's say if you're at the college and you plagiarize so much, it can be a dismissal. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on research writing. Thank you very much for joining our class, and I really hope you can have a good day further. Goodbye.